Greetings, cinephiles. I'm Sue Wright, and welcome to Wild Rivers Film Radio, the official podcast of the Wild Rivers Film Festival here on KCIW 100.7 FM. And today we're sitting down with Lon Goddard, a longtime Brookings resident, musician, music reporter, and a man with stories that a jukebox at midnight might not tell. But before we dive in, we'd like to thank the Wild Rivers Film Festival's 2025 presenting sponsor, the Tolowa Dene Nation. Your generous support has made both our festival and the Summer Film Workshop possible this year. We also thank our incredible sponsors, the Roundhouse Foundation, Travel Curry Coast, Sutter Coast Hospital, Edward Jones, Our Flower House, Southwestern Oregon Community College Curry Campus, and the City of Brookings. If you'd like to join these amazing supporters in celebrating indie cinema, expanding film education, and growing a film economy here on the Wild Rivers Coast, visit wildriversfilmfestival.com for sponsorship opportunities. If you're just discovering us, welcome. The Wild Rivers Film Festival is a 4-day celebration of indie and local cinema each August in Brookings, this year from August 14 to 17. We'll screen more than 4 dozen films across 3 venues, many followed by filmmaker Q&As, and there's also a full slate of panels, VIP parties, and our unforgettable awards ceremony. Festival passes are on sale now at wildriversfilmfestival.com, and we'd love to see you there. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Wild Rivers Film Radio. I'm Sue Wright, and today we're talking with Lon Goddard. Lon, welcome.
Thank you, Sue. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here, too. You're introducing the film Dezo Hoffman tonight. Dezo Hoffman, the man who shot the Sixties in its North American premiere. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about how you happened to be in London at the time when Dezo was photographing the Beatles and so many other major celebrities.
I arrived in London in 1966. I had no particular reason to be there. It was just on a whim. A friend of mine was already going there. He had arranged some classes in Manchester, and we had just graduated from high school down in Elk Grove, California. He was going there anyway. I had nothing else to do. We were flatmates, and I said, okay, I'll go too, because I had an extra $1,000 in the bank for, I can't remember why. So we sailed, and we got to London in 66. And I had a guitar with me. I was doing Guitar 101. So I managed to find a bunch of folk singers, which wasn't difficult in London. And I got absorbed by that.
Yeah.
I was absorbed by that community. And then I needed to get a job. So I
guess $1,000 doesn't last that long, even in the mid-'60s, right?
Secretly, my parents did help.
Oh, okay.
But it got us across on an ocean liner. It was only, I believe, $225 for us to go from New York to Southampton. It was a great 7-day trip on the liner.
Exciting.
We ate well and seemed like first class, even though it wasn't. I think we were below water. But there we go.
It was a big adventure, right? So you needed a job.
I needed a job, and I could draw caricatures. I did it all the way through high school, drawing people who were running for student body president and things like that. And so I thought, well, I'll buy these music papers that I see on the stands. There were at least 5 of them every week that were telling you what's going on in music, almost all over the world, but centrally in London. And I drew pictures of caricatures of the photographs. And then I took them around to the various papers trying to get a job. Record Mirror hired me to do 1 caricature a week. And I believe they gave me £6.10 for it, which is
not enough to live on.
And then because I showed creative ability, I was hired to do layouts. So I became the assistant layout man, taking the paper to the printer each week, which gave me a lot of newspaper experience. And eventually I asked the editor if I could write. I told him I had the ability. I won a couple of things in high school for writing stories. And he said, okay, I'll give you something to write. I said, what? He said, I'll give you an album to review. Because stacks of record albums came in, stacks, like you won't know how many, every week, of people trying to get their albums reviewed by people on the paper, get some publicity. So he gives me an album. I expected something in music, but it wasn't. It was Bill Cosby, Why Is There Air?
So that's your start as a...
Yeah, I know Cosby came to ill repute, but there I was stuck with reviewing a comedy album, which I did. And Cosby was good at that, I have to say. After his appearances in I Spy, which is a great series and things, he had a real good history before he went down. Anyway, I reviewed it, and he said, that's not bad, we'll use it. And then he sent me off on my first interview, which was with the crooner Jack Jones. Who's the son of the Western star Alan Jones, film star. And Jack Jones was at a table at a hotel when I came in, which must have had 20 people around it. And I had to go up and tap him on the shoulder and say, excuse me, I'm from Record Mirror, shaking like a leaf. And he said, oh, yes, absolutely. And he was just so pleasant and accommodating, took me aside to a table, gave me a big interview, which I took down in terrible shorthand that I was developing for myself because I didn't have any tape player.
I was going to say, so you're actually taking notes for this.
I was taking notes.
And this is your first big interview, right?
First one, yeah. Absolutely. And I went back to the office, and I was also not a typist, so I had to hunt and peck and type that out. But he said, my editor, Peter Jones, said, that's fine, we'll use it. And so from then on, it was up to me to get on the phone, find out who was who in the music business, organize interviews to be and go and do, or be told to go and do them by someone else. And then at the same time, lay out the paper, baby it through the printer. And that was my job for at least 7 years on Record Mirror before I departed to other jobs.
So you have a really big part in publishing the Record Mirror for those years.
Yes, very much so. And we made sure that the cover photo was by Dezo Hoffman, almost invariably. And it's also noted on the cover, photo by Dezo Hoffman. Dezo was the Record Mirror official photographer when I came in.
And so he was already there when you started.
He was already there, yeah. I don't think he'd been there that long, but he was the official photographer, and his office was only about a block or two away. And it was in another street, Gerrard Street is the name of it, and it was Chinatown. Chinatown in London was very small. It really was fairly restricted to Gerrard Street. And it was just kind of a treat to always go down to Dezo's office through Chinatown. He was on like the third floor or something, through a very old gated elevator, and go in and go through the files for pictures that we needed for interviews that had been done by other writers or me, or say, Dezo, we need you to go with us because we're going to go and interview the Kinks. We need you to shoot that while we do the interview. So Dezo would go with us to interviews that were done individually, me or the other reporters, or he would go and do things of his own, and he would bring people in the studio, groups, and shoot them, and then we'd have access to those files. So we worked pretty closely with him.
I was going to say, it sounds like you worked hand in hand a lot of times.
All the time. And Dezo was a pretty unique fellow. He had a huge vocabulary with a brilliant Eastern accent that was just really inviting. He could go up and tap you on the shoulder or do anything. He could straighten the blouses on women that he was shooting or say, take this off. And they just were just open to everything. He just had
so
this
charming
thing about him. He was a charmer, definite charmer. he could make people do weird things, like the Beatles jump up in the air all the time. They would do what he said to do.
And then that becomes this iconic image of the Beatles in the air.
It did.
Before Instagram and iPhones and, do this,
Yeah.
this iconic.
He had to make them do it at one time, all four of them. And so they were in different bizarre positions, airborne.
And it still resonates with people today. People know that image.
It does. And Dezo also had a individual foresight in using lighting. He was, and also perspective. Things would come at you in his pictures, or he would light it so well that you looked great even if you didn't. He shot a picture of me, which I still think is one of the best, even though it looks like a teenage who knows what, but he made me look better than I ever did.
So how long did you work with? You worked with Dezo for 7 years, is that right?
Yes.
You worked at the Record Mirror for
7 years with Dezo. Mm-hmm. He was still working with him when I left. I was invited to become the head of the press office for Columbia Records in London, CBS. And I knew the previous press officer very well, so I took the job.
And that's quite a step up.
It was. That's what I thought. And it was. And I had a fine time as a PR. It was a reversal. Formally, it was...
you were production.
The PR's... formerly, it was the PR's job to get me to go and interview their artists. And then it became my job to get someone like me to interview the artists that I then represented. Uh-huh. So it was a reversal.
So how long did you work in music in London altogether?
Not 25 years. I'd say it was about 18.
So that's a good long run.
Of the 25, because after I finished in the music business, which entailed becoming the editor of Disc, another one of the 5 big papers, and also many years at Phonogram Records as the head of press office there, which is Mercury label and others that we know. I left because I didn't like punk music very much.
Oh, okay. I'd never heard that before. So you do have some music biases.
I couldn't honestly go out and represent something I didn't care for.
Okay.
So I went to what I always did well, became a professional illustrator. And I was able to get agents, and I did financially better as an illustrator than I ever did in the music business. Uh-huh. I can't say it was more fun because you work alone. And I had nights of just drawing and projecting and figuring out how to do perspectives. It was all flat artwork. And night after night, I think I did one that was 72 hours straight, just illustrating with airbrush and things like that.
Okay.
So it was pretty lonely.
And you've gone back to folk music. I think that's your first
I always
love,
did
right?
that anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since Dezo Hoffman, the documentary, is in its North American premiere, can you just tell us a little bit about it and get folks excited about going to see it?
Oh, sure.
At the film festival this year?
It was Dezo's assistant, Alan Messer, who was approached by the team from Slovakia, formerly Czechoslovakia, because Dezo was... he wasn't actually Czechoslovakian, but he spent his entire youth there. Yeah, he was actually, I think, Austro-Hungarian.
I think he's Hungarian, right?
Yeah. I believe he was a mixture. His wife was Catholic. He was Jewish, Austrian and Hungary. And then he wound up spending his small years in Czechoslovakia. So we consider him to be that. And so do they. The Slovakians regard him as their own, and they wanted to make a film about him when they discovered the fact that he'd done all this work with the Beatles. So they contacted Alan Messer, who was Dezo's young assistant. I think he started with Dezo when he was 16. something like that. So I worked with Alan, too. Alan recommended myself and Norman Jopling, who was my mentor, besides editor Peter Jones on Record Mirror. But Peter Jones had passed away. Norman Jopling is into film. He was the head of the production, and so he was the person who was teaching me layouts, and he also taught me somewhat in the way of typing, and just really edged me into the entire process of Record Mirror. So Norman's into film, Alan's into film, and I was contacted, and the film team, Patrick Lankrick and Associates, flew me down to Oakland from here, and set me up in a hotel room and did an interview. Prior to that, since I knew I was going to be interviewed, I took a lot of Dezo's photos with me, which I had, and I took a little, iron phony camera. It's really just a little set piece prop, because I thought it might be interesting to put it on a table if they were going to film. And so, oddly enough, they did a little sequence where I'm in the street and I'm imitating Dezo and his accent. That's in the film.
Okay.
I was amazed that they even used it. I told them that I was also a caricaturist. So while I was being filmed, they said, draw him, and I did. Oh. I mean, so I was sitting there, I drew Dezo, and they filmed me drawing it.
And is this does this end up in the film?
It's in the film. Okay. Yeah, and I held it up, and I said, I think the mouth is wrong. It's in there. And one of the oddball things that they did in the movie is that when I was picking up pictures that Dezo had shot, I was explaining that it was always, an official Dezo print was always stamped Dezo Hoffman, and it was an individualized, specific print. And I showed them one of those and saying, this is a picture he shot of me, and here's the print on the back of it saying Dezo Hoffman. Well, they didn't show the picture. They just showed that. And then I showed them another one, which was stamped Rex Features, because it was kind of pitiful, but it was an eventuality, I suppose, as history moved on, that someone was going to purchase Dezo's entire library.
Yes.
And a bigger syndication firm, which I'd used for many reasons earlier, called Rex Features. They bought everything that he had. And so there are some of his now that are reprints, and they say Rex Features on them, which is kind of too bad, but that's the way things
History
go.
moves on, doesn't it? And we don't want to lose these memories and stories about people who were so important. You've also been involved, for a long time you were involved with the interviews with Elmo Williams, who was a longtime Brookings resident, but also an Academy Award-winning editor and producer for films like High Noon and Tora, Tora, Tora. I'm just curious, can you see a documentary about Elmo Williams?
Oh, I absolutely can. Elmo was, there's a great deal of comparison between Elmo and Dezo. Both of them were just eloquent speakers. You want to sit down and listen to them for hours. And yes, and Elmo has a huge history. He was head of 20th Century Fox Pictures for Europe. He won that Academy Award for editing High Noon, which was put on the shelf as a two-reeler that wasn't going to go anywhere until he fixed those clocks and made them tick all the way through the film. And by George, he got himself an Academy Award.
It threads the whole film, doesn't it?
It does. Tick, 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 tick to High Noon.
Uh-huh.
With two exceptions. There were two scenes in the film which were obviously shot at the same time. They're outdoor shots, and there's an overhanging clock which is out of sequence. And Elmo moaned about that forever.
I was going to say, you have to have a pretty good eye to see that.
But when I got into Brookings, I fell in with some people who were doing a local TV show weekly for a non-existent channel now, but it was the educational channel. And there was someone a fellow called Dave. He was doing a weekly thing called Coast Stories, where he interviewed interesting people. Dave wasn't very good at interviewing him, and he was the cameraman at the same time. So it really didn't work. And I came in and said, let me be the host. And that worked real well. And we did it for quite a long time. And one of the people that popped up who was interesting in the town was Elmo.
Uh-huh.
And so we contacted Elmo, and I did a 20-minute interview out on the gazebo in the backyard of his house, which I still have on tape, where we first met. And I still have it. So that was how we met. And from then on, my interest in films, which goes way back like music, and somewhat ability as a host, we did 24 shows for the Chetco Pelican Players, screening and lecture shows.
Mm-hmm.
So Elmo
you choose
a
different movie every year, right? Or every time you did one of these?
Yeah, we'd do a couple a year, and we'd screen the movie. Well, first Elmo would come out and say something about it. Well, actually, let me go back.
And you did this in costume too, right? In the theater.
Yes, I was just going to say, let me go back. We'd do a skit in front of it. Uh-huh. And so I would come out in costume and do some kind of a funny skit, which sometimes involved him, sometimes it didn't. But then it led into a corner which had been devised, a set piece by Mike Moran. And he was also in costume, Elmo. And so we did the interview in costume. Sometimes the skits were really elaborate. I don't know if you want me to describe the one I liked.
Give us an example.
The best one was for High Noon, the second time. There was a band of musicians that I played with, the Art Walk musicians in the town here. Everybody played different instruments. Well, we gathered those people together. There were 7 or 8 of us, and we dressed us all in Western costumes. About 3 of us had actual guns that shot smoke blanks. The rest of us had tons of guns anyway. And one of us had a shotgun with a blank in that. Well, we did this skit where we were waiting for, there was 2 of us, myself and another fellow sitting around a phony campfire, waiting for the posse to get back who were chasing Bad Boy Williams, who was an outlaw. Uh-huh. They all rode in, and they all had huge amounts of equipment. They put them all down and all that stuff. And mysteriously, we thought, I said, let's do a song before we get to sleep, boys. We'll go and find him later. And mysteriously, they all picked up instruments. And we all did Rider in the Rain. It's a Randy Newman song with full harmony, and stand-up bass appeared out of nowhere.
Oh, my goodness.
And then suddenly, Elmo burst in from the side, shooting wildly these blanks, bang, bang. And oh, my God, it's Elmo Williams. And he shot everybody. Everybody died in some way, except me. I arrested him.
Because you had to interview him.
I arrested him, and I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him over into the corner set piece, sat him down, took his gun off, and said, now talk.
I love it. Well, I think we need to get Elmo Williams to talk in a documentary.
I absolutely agree.
Okay. We're coming down to the end of our 30 minutes, and it's gone very fast. I'm just curious. So this is your first year at the Wild Rivers Film Festival, right?
It is.
Because you've been out of town the last couple of years, and we've held you hostage this year with the Dezo Hoffman film. Besides introducing the Dezo film and doing the Q&A afterwards, is there anything that you're looking forward to this year at the film festival?
I'm looking forward to being asked anything that I might be able to elaborate as an answer.
Okay.
That's what I'm looking forward to. I love the interchange.
Yes, interviews. They're
the interchange between myself and someone who's asking a question.
Yes.
Yes.
They're your jam. Okay. Have you had a chance to look at the program? Any films that
I've seen the program, but I don't know the titles.
Okay.
That's the only one that I know. But I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of them.
Okay.
Because I'm always surprised that I'm a film nut anyway. So, yes, I'm looking forward to the entire festival.
Okay, wonderful. Well, so right after our interview, not long after our interview, the students that did the Wild Rivers Film Workshop this summer, they did 5 days of instruction, and then they did 5 days of shooting a TV pilot, which is kind of like a Saturday Night Live for teens called Wild Wild Rivers. And that is screening at 2 today. And it is so funny, but it's so well done. And so I hope you just talking about, young people getting a start in the industries. I hope you'll go and see that.
It'll be reminiscent, and I'll laugh, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add before we close out here? What did I miss?
Well, let me see. Dezo and Elmo, both 4 letters, both ending in O. Interesting. I'm looking forward to both.
Okay. Yeah. So we're probably going to wrap it up here. Lon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
If to our audience, if you're just tuning in, you've been listening to the Wild Rivers Film Radio. I'm Sue Wright, and we're here at the Wild Rivers Film Festival 2025. We've got lots of films to see, and if you're listening to this after the film festival, we will be back next year in 2026, third weekend in August. And I think that's it for this episode of the Wild Rivers Film Radio. To learn more about the festival, buy passes, volunteer, or explore sponsorship opportunities, visit wildriversfilmfestival.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We have activities all through the year, including an afternoon indie series on the first Saturday of the month at the Chetco Community Library, and a short screening as Film as Art during Brookings' second Saturday Art Walk. So we are here, and this is the Wild Rivers Film Radio. Our recording is done by Michael Gorse, who's sitting in the booth and always helps us make sound wonderful. And our sound mixing and editing is done by Tom Bosak. I'm Sue Wright. Our guest is Lon Goddard. And until next time, we'll see you at the movies.